in this video, we're going to take a look at the different pieces of the ignition system. So it's not really so that you know how the entire ignition system works. This is still part of car identification. So when you open up the hood, you can look inside and say, oh, this is a distributor. This is a distributor with external coil. This is a distributor with internal coil. This is a DIS system, or distributor-less ignition, DLS. You got a COP, which is a coilover plug system. And I'm going to identify some basic components so you know what they look like. Okay. So let's start off with our old traditional system of ignition. Okay. So what you've got here, this is our standard coil. This is out of every car up to, I think my truck back in 91 or 92 still had an external coil on it. Okay. They've since moved away from this system, but this is a standard external coil. So if you ever see this on a car, that's what this is. This is our coil. Okay. Next part you're going to look at here is our distributor. Okay. This is the part that physically goes into the engine block. This hooks onto a gear on the camshaft, spinning around the rotor through the distributor. So this is our distributor. This is a rotor. Okay. Now this rotor sits on top of the distributor, and as this spins around, it distributes spark to all the different cylinders. So you can see that this thing's got to be going at about 3,000 RPMs. Okay. Now on top of that, you've got your distributor cap. Okay, so this sits on top here, and this holds our spark plug wires and our coil wire, which always goes to the center. Okay. So once again, that rotor's inside spinning around, distributing spark to all the different cylinders. Okay, so this is our standard system. Don't forget you have your coil, which sits over here on the side with the coil wire running to it. Okay. Standard system. You can see that on that Buick out in the shop. Okay. After that, we went to a coil with an distributor with an internal coil. And I had to draw you a picture of this because I don't have one to show you. GM loved this system, and they used it a lot on their trucks. You can see here that this drawing, you can see it clear enough. We've got a distributor sitting here. Here's our rotor underneath the distributor cap. Got your distributor cap here, and you've got a small coil. It's about, the size of a deck of playing cards, and it's rounded off in the center. And what that does is that sits right on top of the distributor cap. Okay, there's two wires that come in here from an electronic ignition system. The electronic ignition says fire, 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 and then this coil simply sends it out. Since it's built right into the distributor, we don't need a coil wire anymore. One more problem that we got rid of in the distributor system. Sits in here and distributes it out to all the wires. So one of the other advantages is by putting it directly internally, we up the voltage that it's producing. This old system produced somewhere about 20 to 25,000 volts. This system was a high energy system, HE. They used, and it got to about 50,000 volts of power. Now, like my Xterra is running somewhere closer to 100,000 volts. So the system that came after the coil distributor with internal coil, DI system, is the DIS, or the distributorless ignition system. Okay, now we've taken the coil, this guy here, and we've bundled it together into what's called a coil pack. Okay, and this coil pack or coil block has 3 coils built into it, 1, 2, and 3. You can see by the shape of it. You can come up to my desk and take a look at this. The inside here, there are 3 individually wound coils. This is like cylinder 2 and 4, 6 and 3, 5 and 1. Each one of these goes to a different cylinder. There is a module somewhere on the car that controls when the ignition happens. It sends out a pulse. That pulse goes into here. It says fire, 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 and this sends it out. You still have spark plug wires on the system, but there's no need for a distributor cap. Okay? No need for a cap and a rotor, which removed this piece. This was something that was always burning out, fouling out. You had to replace these every 10 to 15,000 miles if you wanted your car to run well all the time. So we took that out of the car, simply replaced it with this coil pack. It was much easier to test. Produced higher ignition still, okay, than our other 2 systems so far. So this is a distributor-less ignition. No distributor needed. So this has to have a camshaft or a crankshaft position sensor to tell the car where the number 1 cylinder is at. So it has a few more electrical parts. We're getting more electronic, computer controlled, less physical control. So coil pack, distributor-less ignition system. Okay. Just to run down again, this is a conventional distributor, okay, distributor with external coil. The one on the board is a distributor with internal coil, DI. This is a distributor-less ignition system, DIS, distributor-less ignition system. And the final one, which none of my shop cars have because it's fairly modern, I don't know when they came out with this system. I know that my wife's 2000 BMW has this coilover system. I'm sure it's been out longer than that. What they've done nowadays, my Xterra, these are actually the ones out of my Xterra, they take a single coil, which is about the same size as the coil that they used in the ignition coil for the distributor with internal coil, but that coil mounts directly on top of the spark plug. So all you don't have spark plug wires anymore. We got rid of the distributor, we got rid of the rotor, we got rid of the distributor, the spark plug wires, got rid of the coil wire. We're now down to simply this plastic piece, which inside has a small spring to conduct electricity, along with a resistor to make sure that our amperage is right coming in there. So that goes inside there. Spark plug. Now these new spark plugs are iridium. These went 100,000 miles in my Xterra. They look pretty bad on the end, but they were still firing fine. My car wasn't missing. Replaced them, put new ones in. When you replace these type of plugs, you always want to make sure you replace this plastic piece. The plugs are $12. I think the plastic piece was only $6 to $10 a piece. It's pretty cheap to replace, and it's just better to do it than to worry about it later, because they get hot, crystallize, and crack, and then they send spark like jumping across to the engine block. So coil over plug, this goes simply onto that. This spins into the cylinder, coil sits right on top. So if it's coil on plug, how many coils do you have to have per cylinder? You have to have one coil per cylinder. So on my truck, there are 6 coils, okay? Whereas this had 3 for 6 cylinders, they shared it between 2. Now you've got 1 coil per plug. And another note about replacing these, if you have to replace one of these coils, if it goes bad, you need to replace all the coils in the engine. So it's just one of those things. So this is a coil over plug, so the coil sits directly on top of the spark plug. And the only thing that goes in between it is this little plastic boot. Okay? That should help you identify the systems out in the shop as well as the systems on different cars. You're going to have some questions about what the different parts look like, and you're going to need to go into the shop now and identify my shop vehicles. Okay, so here we are out in the shop, and we're taking a look at a couple different cars here. So I'm going to start off with the old Buick that I have in my conventional system. And you'll notice here that if we look, we find all our spark plug wires. If you look underneath here, you'll find our distributor cap, which you can see quite clearly. If we were going to follow all these wires back, I said that the center wire on the distributor goes back to our coil. So if I chase this thing down, it comes over here, comes around over here, and sure enough, hiding right here is our coil. Okay, so this is where all of our spark comes from. Our spark comes in through here, down the center wire, the rotor spins around on the inside and distributes it out to all our spark plugs. Pretty straightforward system. Inside here there's some points and a condenser, and we have to set the dwell and stuff on these, but for the most part it's very basic. Remember that the distributor hooks right into the cam, gear on the camshaft, which times it all together. It's all physical, nothing electronic about this whatsoever. Alright, let's go take a look at another system. So we're going to move up a few years here, and this is my Toyota Camry that I have, and you can see here that we still have, follow all our spark plug wires, comes back, we have a standard distributor right here, okay, but what you're not going to see here is this does not have a coil on it, which means that our coil is an internal system. You'll notice that there's 4 wires, 4 plugs, no coil. So our coil is internal on this, and if you can see this little square part right here on the bottom of the cap, that's where our coil is hiding. So this, because there's, like I said, there's no center coil wire, okay, nothing comes out of here, we've got our distributor with internal coil or DI system. Okay, the one before this was DE, distributor external. This is distributor internal system. Okay, no coil wire, no exterior coil. It's all built underneath this cap. So if you pull this cap off, you'd find it hiding underneath there. All right, let's go take a look at another one. Okay, so the next few cars we're going to look at, we're going to jump up a few more years, and we're going to look at the distributor-less ignition, the DIS, and you'll notice that in this case, you've got 4 spark plug wires all coming back to this module here, which is not even a distributor, but just a coil pack. Okay, so if you were to clean this off a little bit underneath here, you'd see that these are actually marked cylinders 1 and 4, and then over here we've got a mark 2 and 3. Okay, so it's a distributor. This electronic right here, you can see this plug comes into the side, runs out, goes back, and goes to our computer, and our computer tells these when to fire. Okay, distributor-less ignition, coil, pack, straight to the spark plugs. Alright, let's move over to our Saturn. Okay, once again, same system. Okay, we've got our 4 coil wires along the thing here. We've got 2 coils. Remember, on these distributorless ignition systems, they typically fire 2 cylinders off 1 coil. So if we have a 4-cylinder, we've got 2 coils. If we've got a 6-cylinder, we've got 3 coils. Okay, so you can see here, distributorless ignition. All the electronic wires coming in here tell us when to fire. Coils built right into the plug wires that go out to our thing. Let's go take a look at another vehicle. Okay, so this is the new Mitsubishi Montero that we put in here last week, and this is a 1990, I believe is what this was. So it is a little bit older system, and you can see here that we've got a distributor cap. Okay, this is something that has to be changed, and because we have a coil coming in the center here, this is a distributor with external coil. Okay, DE system, and underneath here means we have a rotor going around. This is a very traditional type of system. The only thing that's not traditional is this is going to have electronic. The computer is going to tell it when to fire. It does not have points in it or a condenser that have to be replaced. But if you follow the center wire, which goes to our coil, we follow that back around, comes around over here, and sure enough, there's our coil. Okay, so you can see our coil wire coming in here. Here's where our ignition system's at. This tells it when it's going to spark, sends it into the coil, spark, comes around the wire, in here. The rotor then sends it out to all the different spark plugs. Distributor with external coil, DE system. Okay, let's take a look at another one. Okay, so this one's a little bit harder to get in here to see, but this is our Ford out in the back, Ford F-150. Okay, distributor cap. We've got a coil wire in the center, which means there's a rotor underneath here. Okay, we follow that distributor wire back, and it leads us back to our coil, which is back here. Okay, distributor, external coil. And it has, you can see that the electronic wires come in from down here. This actually has a condenser built on the outside to amp up our system. So distributor with external coil. Okay, that's the last one. I'll take you outside and show you one more. Alright, so here we are out on my wife's car. My wife doesn't know that she was nice enough to let us look at this thing. This is a true piece of artistry in automotive mechanics. This right here is a inline 6-cylinder BMW Z3 Coupe, and on the 6 cylinders, what I'm showing you here, guys, is the coil over plug system. You can see here, every one of these represents a coil for the car. So you got all 6 coils right in a line, and like I said earlier, there's a little plastic piece that goes between that coil and the spark plug, which lies right underneath. Okay, so this is a coil over plug system. Okay. All right. Nothing else I can really show you other than the electronics come in here. This goes back to the computer. The computer tells us when to fire, and there it is. These run, like I said, somewhere around 100 to 110,000 volts of electricity. So there's a coil over plug system. Don't tell my wife I did this to her car. Yeah, I just had to give you one picture from the outside. I know it's a little dirty, but man, is it a sexy beast.